Welcome to Exploration Dreamland, a quiet read aloud of the writings of explorers of the real world and the worlds of imagination. Drop anchor, relax into your comfortable bunk, and drift off to Dreamland with us as we read a lightly edited version of The Blazing World by Margaret Cavendish from 1666, considered to be the first science fiction book written by a woman. It's a fascinating glimpse into the ideas of science and philosophy at that time. The book will be read in order, so if you would like to begin at the beginning, please start with Season 5, Episode 87. If you would like to stay in touch between episodes, you can follow us on Blue Sky, Instagram, or Facebook at Exploration Dreamland. If you have a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, it helps more than you know. You can also hear our episodes on YouTube. If you are listening there, please like our episodes and leave a comment for us. We love hearing from you. Now, take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, relax any tension in your muscles. Close your eyes, snuggle into your sleeping space, and listen to tonight's tale. After some time, when the spirits had refreshed themselves in their own vehicles, they sent one of their nimblest spirits to ask the Empress whether she would have a scribe, or whether she would write the Kabbalah herself. The Empress received the proffer which they made her with all civility, and told them that she desired a spiritual scribe. The spirits answered that they could dictate but not write, except they put on a hand or arm, or else the whole body of man. The Empress replied, "How can spirits arm themselves with gauntlets of flesh?" "As well," answered they, "as man can arm himself with a gauntlet of steel." "If it be so," said the Empress, "then I will have a scribe." Then the spirits asked her whether she would have the soul of a living or a dead man. "Why," said the Empress, "can the soul quit a living body and wander or travel abroad?" "Yes," answered they, "for according to Plato's doctrine, there is a conversation of souls, and the souls of lovers live in the bodies of their beloved." "Then I will have," answered she, "the soul of some ancient famous writer, either of Aristotle, Pythagoras, Plato, Epicurus, or the like." The spirits said that those famous men were very learned, subtle, and ingenious writers, but they were so wedded to their own opinions that they would never have the patience to be scribes. "Then," said she, "I'll have the soul of one of the most famous modern writers, as either of Galileo, Gassendi, Descartes, Helmont, Hobbes, H. More, etc." The spirits answered that they were fine ingenious writers, but yet so self-conceited that they would scorn to be scribes to a woman. "But," said they, "there's a lady, the Duchess of Newcastle, which, although she is not one of the most learned, eloquent, witty, and ingenious, yet she is a plain and rational writer, for the principle of her writings is sense and reason, and she will without question be ready to do you all the service she can." "That lady, then," said the Empress, "will I choose for my scribe." Neither will the emperor have reason to be jealous, she being one of my own sex. In truth, said the spirit, husbands have reason to be jealous of platonic lovers, for they are very dangerous, as being not only intimate and close, but subtle and insinuating. You say well, replied the Empress. Wherefore, I pray, send me the Duchess of Newcastle's soul, which the spirit did. And after she came to wait on the Empress, at her first arrival the Empress embraced and saluted her with a spiritual kiss. Then she asked her whether she could write. Yes, answered the Duchess's soul, but not so intelligibly that any reader whatsoever may understand it, unless he be taught to know my characters, for my letters are rather like characters than well-formed letters. Said the Empress, you were recommended to me by an honest and ingenious spirit. Surely, answered the Duchess, the spirit is ignorant of my handwriting. The truth is, said the Empress, he did not mention your handwriting, but he informed me that you writ sense and reason, and if you can but write so, then any of my secretaries may learn your hand, they shall write it out fair and intelligible. The Duchess answered that she questioned not but it might be easily learned in a short time. But, she said to the Empress, what is it your Majesty would have written? She answered, the Kabbalah. Then the only way for that is, said the Duchess, you may have the soul of one of the chief rabbis or sages of the tribe of Levi, who will truly instruct you in that mystery, whenas, otherwise, your Majesty will be apt to mistake, and 1,000 to 1 will commit gross errors. No, said the Empress, for I shall be instructed by spirits. Alas, said the Duchess, spirits are as ignorant as mortals in many cases, for no created spirits have a general or absolute knowledge. Nor can they know the thoughts of men, much less the mysteries of the great Creator, unless he be pleased to inspire into them the gift of divine knowledge. Then I pray, said the Empress, let me have your counsel in this case. The Duchess answered, if your Majesty will be pleased to hearken to my advice, I would desire you to let that work alone, for it will be of no advantage either to you or your people. Wherefore the best way, said she, is to believe with the generality the literal sense of the Scripture, and not to make interpretations every one according to his own fancy, but to leave that work for the learned, or those that have nothing else to do. Neither do I think, said she, that God will damn those that are ignorant therein, or suffer them to be lost for want of a mystical interpretation of the Scripture. Then, said the Empress, I'll leave the Scripture and make a philosophical Kabbalah. The Duchess told her that sense and reason would instruct her of a nature as much as could be known. And as for numbers, they were infinite, but to add nonsense to infinite would breed a confusion, especially in human understanding. Then, replied the Empress, I'll make a moral Kabbalah. The only thing, answered the Duchess, in morality is but to fear God, and to love his neighbor, and this needs no further interpretation. But then I'll make a political Kabbalah, answered the Empress. The Duchess answered that the chief and only ground in government was but reward and punishment, and required no further Kabbalah. But, said she, if your Majesty were resolved to make a Kabbalah, I would advise you, rather to make a poetical or romancical Kabbalah, wherein you may use metaphors, allegories, similitudes, etc., and interpret them as you please. With that, the Empress thanked the Duchess, and, embracing her soul, told her she would take her counsel. She made her also her favorite, and kept her some time in that world, and by this means the Duchess came to know and give this relation of all that passed in that rich, populous, and happy world. And after some time the Empress gave her leave to return to her husband and kindred into her native world, but upon condition that her soul should visit her now and then, which she did. And truly their meeting did produce such an intimate friendship between them that they became platonic lovers, although they were both females. One time, when the Duchess's soul was with the Empress, she seemed to be very sad and melancholy, at which the Empress was very much troubled, and asked her the reason of her melancholic humour. "Truly," said the Duchess to the Empress, "for between dear friends there's no concealment, they being like several parts of one united body. My melancholy proceeds from an extreme ambition." The Empress asked what the height of her ambition was. The Duchess answered that neither she herself nor no creature in the world was able to know either the height, depth, or breadth of her ambition. "But," said she, "my present desire is that I would be a great princess." The Empress replied, "So you are, for you are a princess of the 4th or 5th degree, for a duke or duchess is the highest title or honor that a subject can arrive to, as being the next to a king's title. And as for the name of a prince or princess, it belongs to all that are adopted to the crown, so that those that can add a crown to their arms are princes, and therefore a duke is a title above a prince. For example, the Duke of Savoy, the Duke of Florence, the Duke of Lorraine are, as also kings' brothers, are not called by the name of princes, but dukes, this being the higher title." "'Tis true," answered the Duchess, "unless it be kings' eldest sons, and they are created princes." "Yes," replied the Empress, "but no sovereign does make a subject equal to himself, such as kings' eldest sons partly are. And although some dukes be sovereigns, yet I have heard that a prince by his title is sovereign, by reason the title of a prince is more a title of honor than of sovereignty. For, as I said before, it belongs to all that are adopted to the crown." "Well," said the Duchess, "setting aside this dispute, my ambition is that I would fain be as you are, that is, an empress of a world, and I shall never be at quiet until I be one." "I love you so well," replied the Empress, "that I wish with all my soul you had the fruition of your ambitious desire, and I shall not fail to give you my best advice how to accomplish it. The best informers are the immaterial spirits, and they'll soon tell you whether it be possible to obtain your wish." "But," said the Duchess, "I have little acquaintance with them, for I never knew any before the time you sent for me." "They know you," replied the Empress, "for they told me of you, and were the means and instrument of your coming hither. Wherefore I'll confer with them, and enquire whether there be not another world, whereof you may be Empress as well as I am of this." No sooner had the Empress said this, but some immaterial spirits came to visit her, of whom she inquired whether there were but 3 worlds in all, to wit, the blazing world where she was in, the world which she came from, and the world where the Duchess lived. The spirits answered that there were more numerous worlds than the stars which appeared in these 3 mentioned worlds. Then the Empress asked whether it was not possible that her dearest friend, the Duchess of Newcastle, might be Empress of one of them. Although there be numerous, nay, infinite worlds, answered the spirits, yet none is without government. But is none of these worlds so weak, said she, that it may be surprised or conquered? The spirits answered that Lucian's world of lights had been for some time in a snuff, but of late years one Helmont had got it, who, since he was emperor of it, had so strengthened the immortal parts thereof with mortal outworks as it was for the present impregnable. Said the Empress, if there be such an infinite number of worlds, I am sure not only my friend the Duchess, but any other might obtain one. Yes, answered the spirits, if those worlds were uninhabited, but they are as populous as this your Majesty governs. Why, said the Empress, it is not possible to conquer a world. No, answered the spirits, but for the most part, conquerors seldom enjoy their conquest, for they, being more feared than loved, most commonly come to an untimely end. If you will but direct me, said the Duchess to the spirits, which world is easiest to be conquered, Her Majesty will assist me with means, and I will trust to fate and fortune, for I had rather die in the adventure of noble achievements than live in obscure and sluggish security. Since by the one I may live in a glorious fame, and by the other I am buried in oblivion. The spirits answered that the lives of fame were like other lives, for some lasted long, and some died soon. "'Tis true," said the Duchess, "but yet the shortest-lived fame lasts longer than the longest life of man." "But," replied the spirits, "if occasion does not serve you, you must content yourself to live without such achievements that may gain you a fame." "But we wonder," proceeded the spirits, "that you desire to be Empress of a terrestrial world, when you can create yourself a celestial world if you please." "What?" said the Empress, "can any mortal be a creator?" "Yes," answered the spirits, "for every human creature can create an immaterial world, fully inhabited by immaterial creatures, and populous of immaterial subjects, such as we are, and all this within the compass of the head or skull. Nay, not only so, but he may create a world of what fashion and government he will, and give the creatures thereof such motions, figures, forms, colours, perceptions, etc., as he pleases, and make whirlpools, lights, pressures, and reactions, etc., as he thinks best. Nay, he may make a world full of veins, muscles, and nerves, and all these to move by one jolt or stroke. Also, he may alter that world as often as he pleases, or change it from a natural world to an artificial. He may make a world of ideas, a world of atoms, a world of lights, or whatsoever his fancy leads him to. And since it is in your power to create such a world, what need you to venture life, reputation, and tranquillity to conquer a gross material world? For you can enjoy no more of a material world than a particular creature is able to enjoy, which is but a small part, considering the compass of such a world. And you may plainly observe it by your friend the Empress here, which, although she possesses a whole world, yet enjoys she but a part thereof. Neither is she so much acquainted with it, that she know all the places, countries, and dominions she governs. The truth is, a sovereign monarch has the general trouble, but the subjects enjoy all the delights and pleasures in parts, for it is impossible that a kingdom, nay, a country, should be enjoyed by one person at once, except he take the pains to travel into every part, and endure the inconveniences of going from one place to another. Wherefore, since glory, delight, and pleasure lives but in other men's opinions, and can neither add tranquillity to your mind, nor give ease to your body, why should you desire to be empress of a material world, and be troubled with the cares that attend government? When, as by creating a world within yourself, you may enjoy all both in whole and in parts, without control or opposition, and may make what world you please, and alter it when you please, and enjoy as much pleasure and delight as a world can afford you. You have converted me, said the Duchess to the spirits, from my ambitious desire. Wherefore, I'll take your advice, reject and despise all the worlds without me, and create a world of my own. The Empress said, If I do make such a world, then I shall be mistress of 2 worlds, one within and the other without me. That your Majesty may, said the spirits, and so left these 2 ladies to create 2 worlds within themselves, who did also part from each other until such time as they had brought their worlds to perfection. The Duchess of Newcastle was most earnest and industrious to make her world, because she had none at present. And first she resolved to frame it according to the opinion of Thales, but she found herself so much troubled with demons that they would not suffer her to take her own will, but forced her to obey their orders and commands, which she being unwilling to do, left off from making a world that way, and began to frame one according to Pythagoras's doctrine. But in the creation thereof she was so puzzled with numbers, how to order and compose the several parts, that she, having no skill in arithmetic, was forced also to desist from the making of that world. Then she intended to create a world according to the opinion of Plato, but she found more trouble and difficulty in that than in the 2 former. For the numerous ideas, having no other motion but what was derived from her mind, whence they did flow and issue out, made it a far harder business to her to impart motion to them than puppet players have in giving motion to every several puppet, insomuch that her patience was not able to endure the trouble which those ideas caused her. Wherefore she annihilated also that world, and was resolved to make one according to the opinion of Epicurus, which she had no sooner begun, but the infinite atoms made such a mist that it quite blinded the perception of her mind. Neither was she able to make a vacuum as a receptacle for those atoms, or a place which they might retire into, so that, partly for the want of it, and of a good order and method, the confusion of those atoms produced such strange and monstrous figures as did more affright than delight her, and caused such a chaos in her mind as had almost dissolved it. At last, having with much ado cleansed and cleared her mind of these dusty and misty particles, she endeavored to create a world according to Aristotle's opinion. But remembering that her mind, as most of the learned hold it, was immaterial, and that, according to Aristotle's principle, out of nothing, nothing could be made, she was forced also to desist from that work, and then she fully resolved not to take any more patterns from the ancient philosophers, but to follow the opinions of the moderns, and to that end she endeavored to make a world according to Descartes' opinion. But when she had made the ethereal globules and set them moving by a strong and lively imagination, her mind became so dizzy with their extraordinarily swift turning round that it almost put her into a swoon. For her thoughts, but their constant tottering, did so stagger, as if they had all been drunk. Wherefore she dissolved that world, and began to make another, according to Hobbes's opinion. But when all the parts of this imaginary world came to press and drive each other, they seemed like a company of wolves that worry sheep, or like so many dogs that hunt after hares. And when she found a reaction equal to those pressures, her mind was so squeezed together that her thoughts could neither move forward nor backward, which caused such a horrible pain in her head that although she had dissolved that world, yet she could not, without much difficulty, settle her mind, and free it from that pain which those pressures and reactions had caused in it. At last, when the Duchess saw that no patterns would do her any good in the framing of her world, she was resolved to make a world of her own invention, and this world was composed of sensitive and rational, self-moving matter. Indeed, it was composed only of the rational, which is the subtlest and purest degree of matter, for as the sensitive did move and act both to the perceptions and consistency of the body, so this degree of matter at the same point of time, for though the degrees are mixed, yet the several parts may move several ways at one time, did move to the creation of the imaginary world, which world, after it was made, appeared so curious and full of variety, so well ordered and wisely governed, that it cannot possibly be expressed by words, nor the delight and pleasure which the Duchess took in making this world of her own. In the meantime, the Empress was also making and dissolving several worlds in her own mind, and was so puzzled that she could not settle in any of them. Wherefore she sent for the Duchess, who, being ready to wait on the Empress, carried her beloved world along with her, and invited the Empress's soul to observe the frame, order, and government of it. Her Majesty was so ravished with the perception of it that her soul desired to live in the Duchess's world. But the Duchess advised her to make such another world in her own mind, for, said she, Your Majesty's mind is full of rational corporeal motions, and the rational motions of my mind shall assist you by the help of sensitive expressions with the best instructions they are able to give you. The Empress, being thus persuaded by the Duchess to make an imaginary world of her own, followed her advice, and after she had quite finished it, and framed all kinds of creatures proper and useful for it, strengthened it with good laws, and beautified it with arts and sciences. Having nothing else to do, unless she did dissolve her imaginary world, or made some alterations in the blazing world she lived in, which yet she could hardly do, by reason it was so well ordered that it could not be mended, for it was governed without secret and deceiving policy. Neither was there any ambitious factions, malicious detractions, civil dissensions, or home-bred quarrels, divisions in religion, foreign wars, etc. But all the people lived in a peaceful society, united tranquillity, and religious conformity. She was desirous to see the world the Duchess came from, and observe therein the several sovereign governments, laws, and customs of several nations. The Duchess used all the means she could to divert her from that journey, telling her that the world she came from was very much disturbed with factions, divisions, and wars. But the Empress would not be persuaded from her design, and lest the Emperor or any of his subjects should know of her travel and obstruct her design, she sent for some of the spirits she had formerly conversed withal, and inquired whether none of them could supply the place of her soul in her body at such a time when she was gone to travel into another world. They answered, yes, they could, for not only one, said they, but many spirits may enter into your body, if you please. The Empress replied, she desired but one spirit to be viceroy of her body in the absence of her soul, but it must be an honest and ingenious spirit, and if it was possible, a female spirit. The spirits told her that there was no difference of sexes amongst them, but, said they, we will choose an honest and ingenious spirit, and such a one as shall so resemble your soul, that neither the Emperor nor any of his subjects, although the most divine, shall know whether it be your own soul or not. Which the Empress was very glad at, and after the spirits were gone, asked the Duchess how her body was supplied in the absence of her soul. Who answered her Majesty that her body, in the absence of her soul, was governed by her sensitive and rational corporeal motions. Thus those two female souls travelled together as lightly as two thoughts into the Duchess her native world, and, which is remarkable, in a moment viewed all the parts of it, and all the actions of all the creatures therein, especially did the Empress's soul take much notice of the several actions of human creatures in all the several nations and parts of that world, and wondered that for all there were so many several nations, governments, laws, religions, opinions, etc., they should all yet so generally agree in being ambitious, proud, self-conceited, vain, prodigal, deceitful, envious, malicious, unjust, revengeful, irreligious, factious, etc. She did also admire that not any particular state, kingdom, or commonwealth was contented with their own shares, but endeavored to encroach upon their neighbors, and that their greatest glory was in plunder and slaughter, and yet their victories less than their expenses, and their losses more than their gains, but their being overcome, in a manner their utter ruin. But that she wondered most at was, that they should prize or value dirt more than men's lives, and vanity more than tranquillity. For the Emperor of a world, said she, enjoys but a part, not the whole, so that his pleasure consists in the opinions of others. It is strange to me, answered the Duchess, that you should say thus, being yourself an Empress of a world, and not only of a world, but of a peaceable, quiet, and obedient world. "'Tis true," replied the Empress, "but although it is a peaceable and obedient world, yet the government thereof is rather a trouble than a pleasure. For order cannot be without industry, contrivance, and direction. Besides, the magnificent state, that great princes keep or ought to keep is troublesome." "Then, by your Majesty's discourse," said the Duchess, "I perceive that the greatest happiness in all the worlds consists in moderation." "No doubt of it," replied the Empress. "And after these two souls had visited all the several places, congregations, and assemblies, both in religion and state, the several courts of judicature and the like, in several nations, the Empress said, that of all the monarchs of the several parts of the world, she had observed the Grand Seigneur was the greatest, for his word was a law, and his power absolute." But the Duchess prayed the Empress to pardon her that she was of another mind, "For," said she, "he cannot alter Mahomet's laws and religion, so that the law and church do govern the emperor, and not the emperor them." "But," replied the Empress, "he has power in some particulars, as for example, to place and displace subjects in their particular governments of church and state, and having that, he has the command both over church and state, and none dares oppose him." "'Tis true," said the Duchess, "but if it pleases your Majesty, we will go into that part of the world whence I came to wait on your Majesty, and there you shall see as powerful a monarch as the Grand Signior. For though his dominions are not of so large extent, yet they are much stronger. His laws are easy and safe, and he governs so justly and wisely that his subjects are the happiest people of all the nations or parts of that world." Stay tuned for the next section of The Blazing World by the Duchess of Newcastle. Please follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast app. Keep in touch with us on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, and recommend us to anyone you know who could use a quiet break or a little help falling asleep. Exploration Dreamland is produced, edited, and hosted by me, Sarah Van Zaley. A big thank you to Project Gutenberg and LibriVox for helping me find many interesting publications. Thanks also to Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for providing the theme music for this show. The title of this piece is Kalimba Relaxation Music, if you would like to visit his website to hear it in its entirety. Sweet dreams.